Hi everyone, welcome. Preparing to check in on what has now, since the last time we checked in on it 10 days ago, it has since then taken the seat as the oldest of my active worm bins. When we last checked in, there were still a couple paired up bins that were stacked one on top of each other just next to it that were in the process of migration. I've since hauled the worms out, and what's really going on over there is just really what I treat as harvested castings. I'm just collecting up stragglers out of the what I treat as the harvested castings. So in a way, I'm allowing that space to be occupied by that, even though technically this is the system that's now my oldest bin, and it's 322 days of age, which is 46 weeks. It was only 10 days ago when we checked in here to give the horizontal migration of this system its second feeding. It went 13 days, and now it's gone another 10 days. So 3 weeks, 2 days of horizontal migration, trying to get the worms to exit their castings voluntarily by creating a nice, cozy spot for them to come over to. Fresh bedding, fresh food. And you might remember, this is the system where we've been feeding non-frozen foods only. So the interesting thing that I was very anxious to check in on today here in the feeding zone is a not frozen whole banana that we gave them. So I'm wondering, after 10 days, have they managed to go through the skin because it wasn't peeled? Have they eaten it already? I don't know. It's a big mystery, but I'm looking forward to seeing where it's at. So let me get a glove on, get the system up on the bench, and we're going to get started. The meal plan consists of my worm chow, and I'm anticipating that the little dividing wall that we installed over here, the cardboard divider that actually was a holdover from the previous check-in, managing to survive intact enough to be reused, has got to be gone by now. I can see scraps of it, but there's no way that any of that can remain at this point. So it's somewhere like right around here is where we installed the little protector, hoping that we can keep all the shredded paper, cardboard, all that stuff that we were using to build the horizontal migration feeding zones separate from all these beautiful castings, so that the castings don't get littered with little chunks of paper and food scraps and anything else like that. So I figured really quick I would just set the material aside, the lovely castings, and then we could really look at the rest of what remains as the horizontal migration feeding zone. The last check-in 10 days ago, when we went inspecting the material in the horizontal migration feeding zone, it already looked very much like a very large number of worms had come over to partake in the dampness and the fresh bedding and the foods and everything that have been getting put in there. And then last time too, we came in here with even more food, that huge banana, a full intact banana, as well as some basil, I think it was, and maybe even some other stuff, I can't recall. Something rings a bell, as if there might have even been coffee, perhaps. So I think we've created a pretty good little dividing line here, and perhaps we could just keep our new replacement partition handy, just to prevent our lovely castings from getting contaminated as we inspect how things look. So the material that made up horizontal migration feeding number 1 is what would be roughly over here. We nudged it inward so that we could throw the banana and some fresh bedding over here into the section furthest away. And what we're going to do today is supplement the bedding, I think, basically, and the worm chow will just get sprinkled in amongst the bedding with some moisture to help it stay suspended to the bedding, and that's pretty much going to be their non-frozen feeding, to help maintain the horizontal migration feeding zone as a place that worms would want to be. So, let's not kid anyone. I think the Main reason we're here is because I really want to see how that banana is coming along. So I think I'm going to do the old nudging, or at least a part of it here, right now, just so we can get this whole loaf off the wall and then start working our way down to where the banana was placed. So I guess, in the back of my mind, it seemed like either we're going to walk in on a crazy worm party, if the worms did manage to get into the banana, or we're going to end up with a big, huge chunk of food that 10 days ago should have been given to the worms in such a way that exposes itself to the worms so they can get to work on it rather than it just sitting here. Oh, maybe. Oh, something might start leaking out. Maybe at least some fluid started oozing. And well, either way, it's broken in half now because it just popped in my hand over here. But in a way, I was envisioning, this thing being loaded with worms. But we definitely did get some right here directly beneath where the banana was. So we've got ourselves a really lovely turnout over here in this horizontal migration feeding zone. I'm also definitely curious to see what's going on over in the finished castings. See what kind of worm turnout is over there, or I mean, not so much turnout, but lingering stragglers. How many worms haven't figured out that over here is the place to be in the feeding zone, not over there in the finished castings? Well, I guess this justifies me giving them a somewhat skimpy feeding in the form of just some worm chow, because there's still the entire feeding that they received last time waiting for them right here in the form of this pretty much untouched banana given to them 10 days ago, but they were denied access to it by the peel. Well, the peel is no longer an issue. So they should be able to come right in here and go crazy and pig out. So, let's not finish. I mean, let's not shortchange ourselves on the opportunity to just plow through this material a little bit more and just see how many worms there really are over here. They're definitely coming together, and I guess this is good. We're getting the opportunity to blend in some of these scraps of the bedding that we applied last time into the material in general. Yeah, here too, lots and lots of worms. Definitely a good many hanging out. Alright, so I guess how to apply the feeding. I'm just gonna sprinkle a little bit, and I mean, as long as I put a little bit in, I can still count it in my record keeping that, yeah, okay, we gave them something. So that's going to be a part of it. I'll give them more. I just figured if I come in here with my spray bottle, then perhaps I can get some of this food to drain down into the bedding material below it. I guess at the same time, it probably doesn't hurt to add moisture over here, because that's definitely going to grab the attention of the worms, make them come running over. But I think I'm at the point where I'm kind of ready to do my final nudge. So I think we're going to make the cutoff point somewhere around here. This will give me maybe an inch or so of nudging room. But let's sort of pin this partition on the opposite side so that it doesn't go crumbling. Just backfill on this side a little bit too, and then we can give it our customary nudge. Alright, yeah, there's a good bit of moisture now down there since we sprayed. And here's some more of my prepared bedding. There was plenty of food left over, and as far as I could tell, there was also a good bit of bedding still left over too. So bedding might not be getting consumed as quickly as I thought. It's always good to see a little bit of leftover bedding in here so that I don't feel like they've burned through all of it and have just been without. So we'll do a little bit more of this dampening of their worm chow. And I think just there's a nice little top dressing. Just to make the whole feeding zone look a little prettier, we'll come in with perhaps one more sprinkling across the top, give the whole thing a nice common appearance. And get some of these pieces that accidentally fell over onto the right side. So we're going to cover this up at the end, because having it open like this is good, because as we start to make our way over into the finished castings, any sort of stuff that we encounter along the way that we know doesn't belong there, in other words, anything that's not castings only, we could just drop it right over here into the feeding zone, because like here I could see little chunks of avocado peel shimmering. Here's a little stick. So there's definitely stuff to be found in this finished castings material if you go looking for it. Perhaps if the stuff were to dry out to the point where we could run it through our screen, we could come up with some materials got, you know, much finer consistency and less debris in it. But you know, besides the worms doing their work, there's all the other microorganisms. There's fungi and mold and bacterias and all kinds of different things down here, other helper insects, you name it. There's all kinds of stuff helping with the process to continue breaking this stuff down. So it just keeps getting finer and finer. So it does seem like we're kind of at our limit in terms of how high we could stack up against this little partition I installed. It was sort of a shorty little mini partition. I mean, I only tailored it accounting for what I kind of remembered as the depth of the feeding zone. We didn't make the feeding zone terribly deep, so it seemed to me like that piece of cardboard should be enough, and I think we'll be okay with it. All I really wanted to do was get a sense of how many worms still occupy this material, how much longer do we still need, so that we get the majority of them to leave on their own accord. And to a large degree, I believe it's the moisture content of the material that really gets them going, you know. As long as the moisture content of this stuff remains pretty high, okay. The worms are quite content to hang out in it, because as you can see, there's all kinds of lingering bits of stuff in it that they can continue nibbling on. They won't go hungry in this stuff. So perhaps the best way to motivate them to leave is to let the stuff keep getting drier and drier. So it's been uncovered now over the past 10 days, and I think it did help dry the material some. And just by me blending in a lot of the stuff that was out on the top surface in with the more damp stuff below, combining it all, I think that in itself is also going to help a lot, driving the level of moisture down in the system. And I guess there's always that option for me to come in here between now and our next check-in to possibly give the stuff another stir to help it dry. As a result of that, in this case, I did not do anything along those lines. Coming in here with you guys was the first time we checked in here on this system since we did it together to give them horizontal migration feeding number 2. So this right here registers as horizontal migration feeding number 3 after 23 days. And I bet you we probably could call this system quits soon, but for now I'm just going to treat this as in progress. And I think I've got to give myself some homework here. We're going to have to set up a new home for these guys, so I think that's got to be one of my to-dos. Perhaps by the next time we check in, I should be able to report back to you guys that that's been taken care of and that it's awaiting worm occupation. So that's it for the check-in, everyone. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, as always, please don't forget to leave me a quick thumbs up before you go. That's always really appreciated. And if you haven't done so already, please also consider subscribing to the channel. That's very much appreciated as well. All right, everyone, have a great day. Thanks for watching. Bye now.